This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Hey, I'm running out to drop off a stack of letters and packages. Need anything shipped while I'm gone?
Save the gas. Stamps.com lets you print postage and schedule pickups right from your desk. Sync your contacts into the address book, get detailed accounting insights, and get notified the moment your certified mail is delivered.
All from my desk?
All from your desk.
Join the 4 million businesses using Stamps.com right now with code PODCAST and get your free welcome gift. Stamps.com, code PODCAST. Taxes and fees apply.
A Swift Kickin' Ass, episode 29.
Welcome to a Swift Kicking the Ass podcast, hosted by lifelong friends Tom Stewart and John Curren. Today's episode is a special feature covering Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong friend John Curren. We've been friends since we were 4 years old, and that's probably about 45 years, right, John?
Yeah, that's about right. I've lost count, Tom.
It's around there. It's over 40. Today we're covering Robert Greene's popular book, The 48 Laws of Power, and today we're on Law 16. It's use absence to increase respect and honor. According to the book, John, it's too much circulation makes the price go down. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. If you are already established in a group, temporarily withdraw from it, and you'll be more talked about, even more admired. You must learn when to leave. Create value through scarcity. That's it.
Oh, okay. I was, see?
It's short and sweet, man.
The point here.
Short and sweet.
See, my absence was missed.
Ah.
I mean, it was noticed. So that hesitation was done on purpose. This chapter, I think, or this law really has to deal a lot with the haves versus the have-nots. If you have something, we tend to take advantage of it or take it for granted and not really realize what we have until it's gone. And I think that's true throughout the world, and we can see it in relationships. We can see it in material things. We can see it in many different aspects of our lives.
Distance makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I believe somewhere in that chapter it says that love never dies from starvation. So it makes sense. If you're loved and you go away, in fact, I think death is a lot like that. Once a person dies, your perception of them changes over time. In fact, I know that with my dad, who died several years ago, I tend to remember all the good about him and all the good things, and forget about the bad. But in the back of my mind, I know that my dad was very difficult to deal with sometimes, and not everyone liked my dad. I loved him, but he could be a real son of a bitch sometimes. And I love my dad, but I also, understand that it's one-sided. I'm going to love him no matter what he is, and I miss him now that he's gone. But
it's funny because you mentioned your dad. My mom last night was saying that she misses my father, who passed away, 2003. She misses him now more than ever because she used to watch my son Hunter as he was growing up, and now he's like 12, so he's old enough, kind of like he's self-sufficient. So he doesn't need grandma around as much. And she gets lonelier, and she's like, I really, really miss him. Just want someone to talk to. But it's true. It's, never forget the people that you loved.
Yeah. And I think that's key element to this law is that you need to be loved or honored and respected before you try to withdraw yourself. Because if you're absent and no one knew that you were there in the beginning, in the first place, you're not going to be missed. the law will not apply. But when you're loved, when you're respected, when you're honored, this really comes into play. Now, as I was reading this or rereading this chapter, the chapter talks a lot about the Middle Ages, and there's a great story about knights in the Middle Ages and how they were dealing with their ladies. But I didn't live in the Middle Ages, and I don't necessarily relate to that. But I have to share that as I was reading, I kept on thinking about that heavy, or it's not heavy metal, I guess it's glam rock or hair bands back from the 80s. Cinderella, they had a song called "Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone," and that just kept on, that just kept on playing in through my head as I'm reading about these knights who really messed up with his lady just because he wanted to feel the joy of reconciliation. So he screwed things up with his woman, and and it didn't play out like he thought it would. I mean, he really made himself suffer because of his desire to learn about this. And tying that into the Cinderella song, it says, the song starts out saying, I can't tell you, baby, what went wrong. And he can't make you feel what you felt so long ago. So basically he's talking about, things are really bad right now. They weren't always that way. And I want to get back there to how we felt, but I just don't know how, because I don't know where I messed up. And, that love is gone, and he didn't know what he had when he had it. He took her for granted, and here he is left alone.
Now,
if we look back,
did these knights pick that up out of Nice Guys Don't Get Laid? Do you remember that book? It was popular in the 90s. It was featured on Oprah, of all things. It was this guy that wrote a book, basically, how the bad boy, wins girls, and the nice guy always gets treated as the welcome mat. It was kind of like illustrated with cartoons, and it was tongue in cheek, but it rang very true.
Yeah, and I think that applies to this law, but I think it also applies to other laws throughout this book.
True.
And we need to keep that in mind about this. The laws of power are about power, and what is power? It's about getting people to really do your bidding. I guess that, that's as simply as put. It's about control and about controlling your own life. I was thinking about that night and how he messed things up with his lady, and how he wanted, he did it solely for learning the joy of reconciliation. And I'm thinking all the time, well, maybe he wanted to know about makeup sex, because makeup sex is pretty darn good.
Yeah, that was passing through my mind when you were talking about that story.
But in the end, he was a jerk to the woman he loved, and he messed up, and he brought all the suffering upon himself. But and now as I'm listening to the radio, I hear this theme a time and time and time again. I mean, this has been, this is relevant now, and it's relevant, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. In fact, I've been just dying to share one of the little parables that are contained in the chapter. I just can't hesitate to say it. It's an ancient Chinese parable, and it's called "The Virtues of the Cock." And it's not what this is a rooster. Let's just make sure we're straight.
I thought we were talking about Ice-T's Evil Dick song that he used to have.
Well, hey, you probably know a little bit more about that song than I do. But yeah, we could certainly talk about that. but back in ancient China, there's a parable that says, if I could be any animal, I would want to be a snow goose, because when a snow goose, well,
What the hell is a snow goose?
well, I guess it's a very rare goose that travels and migrates, and along the way they would stop at these farms and they would eat fish and turtles out of the farmers' ponds, and they really had no virtue, but they were so rare that people looked up to them. They really liked them. Now, the virtues of the cock come in that the rooster has a crest, and that was a symbol of civility. In fact, I think we've seen that in flags in the Middle Ages, whereas there's a rooster. Roosters are seen as being very virtuous. They have very powerful talons, which suggests strength and power, and they're daring to fight any enemy. They have courage, and they usually do this to protect their flock. I don't know if anyone's been on a farm, but roosters can be tenacious.
Yeah, I see them. They run out in front of me when I'm driving down to Miami all the time. No lie, I had about 10 of them run in front of my car the other day.
I saw a turkey today when I was driving.
That's pretty cool.
Just the strangest thing. They saunter across the road, their heads bobbing back and forth. I told my wife, I said, maybe I should have, sped up and hit it and we could have had dinner. I didn't do that. But going back to our talk about the cock, they're seen as being benevolent. They're, I don't know much about chickens, but it said that there's an instinct to invite others when food is obtained. And I guess if you think about it, when you picture chickens and roosters, they're all kind of pecking at the ground and they're all eating. And the rooster isn't trying to chase the hens and the other chickens away from the food, which is true with a lot of other animals. There are a lot of other animals, say for dogs, for instance, are very, they're very sensitive about their food, and they don't want anybody messing with them, including the owner. And then the last virtue of the cock that we're talking about is punctuality, and it crows at sunrise, day in and day out. So, with all these virtues, it seems like they would be held with great reverence. Reverence, I know I'm mispronouncing that, but held in high esteem. They're going to be looked upon very highly. But that night, if the farmer's hungry, guess who he's going to go get for dinner? He's not going to get the snow goose who has landed on his property and is eating his fish and his turtles and really has no virtues. He's holding that in high regard. But the rooster or the cock, who has all these virtues, well, you know what? That rooster's dinner. And why is that? It is because the rooster or the chicken is so common. They're domesticated, they can be raised, and they can multiply, and they're a food source, regardless of the virtues. And I think that's important for all of us to recognize. I think that we as human beings all have different virtues, but if they're very commonplace, or even if they're great virtues, if they're common, it doesn't matter in the world of power. You're not going to, and going back to what you said about good guys finish last or good guys don't get laid. That applies.
All right, so let's take another spin on this, because it's basically scarcity, and this is used in advertising all the time. TV, radio, print. You see it. There's always 3-day sale. You'll never see this sale again. Black Friday. It's real popular in internet marketing, where if you click on a page, how they'll say early bird special available for the next 4 hours. If you don't click it now, the price is going to double, and raise with every other purchase. So it might raise $1 or a dime or whatever kind of sale they have on.
And that's true.
And they triggered it. You even see the countdown, and your blood pressure kind of jumps for a second. You're like, oh, I got to buy it. And you're like, I don't even want this thing. Why do I have to buy it? But it's something instinctive, and they know it's a psychological trigger.
Well, if you go to buy a new car, same thing applies.
Mm-hmm.
That salesman's going to come out and say, hey, I've got the deal for you, but as soon as you walk off this lot, that deal is gone. I'm not going to give you time to think about it. It's here. It's now. Decide to pull the trigger, and that's it. And when people try that tactic with me, I generally just say, okay, good. I'm walking away. And I think that's what we all need to walk away from this episode with, is that we need to be aware of this tactic, and you need to be prepared to be able to walk away from just about anything. And that is, in the long run, going to increase your power and your respect when you're willing to walk away. Recently, Tommy, on the phone, we were talking about Army men. There was a full page ad often in the back of the comics, and they talked about, and I just actually saw this because I was looking through some old comics. 100 Army men for $1.75.
Yep, I remember it.
And I remember ordering that, and I was so excited. I was like, I can't wait for my Army men to get here. And when I got them, they were like thinner than a dime.
They were the model plastic, same kind that you got in models where you had to break the little pieces off the frame. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's because I got the Roman collection on that, and I thought, that comes with catapults. Even the ball was it wasn't a true ball. It was a half a spear, and you had to put it together, and it barely even, every time you shot it, it broke apart. And I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, what a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And it, I bring this up because this is not only about absence in the terms of a physical presence. This is also applies to an absence of knowing or an ignorance. Here we are, we're sold on this ad, and the ad is just glorious. It shows this war scene and people getting knifed and, blood spurting everywhere. When you're a kid, that just seems glorious. I know different now, and I hate war. But as a kid, and you're going to buy 100 Army men for $1.75, or maybe it was $1.50 even, it just seemed great. But when you get it and you actually find out what it is, it ain't so great. And that also plays into the middle-aged story with the knights too, is that, and that's how the knight really screwed things up for himself, because after he distanced himself from his lady, she came running after him, which was very much unheard of back in that time. And he started really second guessing himself and saying, do I really want this lady? She's not being very ladylike coming after me, and she loves me so much. And the fact is, I think that they loved each other, but they're being so stubborn and, playing those games. If she would have just let him go, he would have come back on his own. And eventually I think that happened, but it took some back and forth and a lot of suffering.
Yeah,
and in fact, he got chased by her guards, told never to come back. So
anything else you want to add about this law, or have we exhausted our content of being absent?
Well, there's one more thing I think we've covered just about everything.
What about Marlon Brando? Remember how Marlon Brando kind of like disappeared, and all of a sudden he was like the sought after movie star because he was so reclusive, and he and he wouldn't come and besides gaining 500 pounds or whatever he was. But you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah. Well, I think other actors have done that too. In modern day, Joaquin Phoenix did that. He at the height of his career, he said, I'm retiring.
Yeah, but he has a new movie out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because you hadn't seen him in so long. And then now he looks like a middle-aged guy. And I was like, oh my God, it's like, I'm
well, he is.
Yeah, I know, but it's, he hasn't aged as well, I guess. I don't know. But, no, he just, it's just startling because you're right. He just kind of like dropped off the scene and now he's back and, Well, and it probably raises their price point too, what they can charge for a movie.
Right. I was just going to say, is that necessarily a bad thing? He made himself scarce, and people wanted him back, and he probably got more money out of it. It's better to draw people and power towards you than to repel them. And in the case, if you're overbearing, if you're oversaturated, I mean, look at any of these so-called stars that are in the news day in and day out, Kim Kardashian or whoever, Bruce Jenner or Kylie Jenner or whatever name she's going by. So many of these people are in the news day in and day out. You get tired of hearing about it.
Hey, you can never have enough Honey Boo Boo.
Who says? I know enough about that show to know, yes, you can. And for me, it's limited to a commercial. I think she's gone. Now too. So in the end, don't become a habit. People will respect you less and less. We could talk about relationships. We could talk about material things. I was thinking, when I read, don't become a habit, I was thinking, gosh, people who smoke, when they first start smoking, it seems so, they seem so classy and debonair. At least back when we were growing up, people looked upon smoking a lot differently. It was cool. Look at James Dean. He always has a cigarette in his mouth.
Right. All those old movies, if you look at them, the women are smoking, the men are smoking, the kids are smoking. It's like,
it was a status symbol.
Do you remember when we were kids, we had those little smoking monkeys and smoking dogs?
Yes.
And that was sold to kids, and the bubble gum cigarettes where we would blow through them, and a little puff of powdered sugar would come out, and you'd think, yeah, I'm smoking, I'm cool.
Yeah, and that seems so cool. But as that becomes more and more of a habit, people lose, respect. I mean, even for themselves. I'm an ex-smoker. I used to smoke a very long time ago, and I know that it becomes a habit. It wears on you, and you think, "What the hell am I doing?" And you lose respect for it. You don't want it anymore. Same. Look back on long-term relationships that you've had. I mean, I've been married a long time, just as you have too, Tom. And think back about when you first started dating your wife, and that spark was in the air, and there was that chemistry and that heat, and you just couldn't wait to be with them. Do you have that same feeling now? Don't answer. I don't want to get you in trouble. I know I'm not answering it, but you could say the relationship matures into something more and different.
Absolutely. That was one good thing when I was in the Air Force. I would go away for 8 days at a time, then come back, and then I'd go away. So it I was gone for a little while. So that did help a little bit because it kept it kind of fresh, because it was like, oh yeah, Tom's coming back home from alert, and But yeah, I know what you're saying. Maybe I need to go on a vacation
and make yourself distant.
I'll come back and I'll look all hot.
There'll be dishes in the sink, and
somehow I think my absence will just get me in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. Although it might surprise you, Tom, you might want to try that, because I know when I've taken some trips over away from my family to, help with my family down in Florida, I came back and I was basically just suffocated by my kids, and even my dog was running up to me, and everyone was so happy, and just makes you feel good.
What about when we were kids and they had toys? At least I've always liked Spider-Man and stuff, but whenever they came out with Spider-Man characters, they always made like 10 different Spider-Man characters and like one villain. And I was always like disappointed. And then the villain would be scarce. He would be hard to find. And you'd look all over the place trying to find a villain for Spider-Man, because you had like these 10 different, construction worker Spider-Man and scuba diving Spider-Man and what have you, but no villain. So they always made those guys scarce. And, so I would search all the Toys R Us and Kmart's and Walmart's or whatever the store was at that time.
Yeah. And I was thinking too about I love rock music, and Led Zeppelin to me is one of the best super rock bands that there ever was. But if you look back at their history, part of their allure is that they were mysterious. They really did not grant interviews. No one really knew about them on a personal level. They spoke through their music, and everyone loved their music, but they really didn't know much about the band members. Because they stayed out of the news. They kept their family out of the news. And that we all know that there are, many different stories about that band and about all the hedonism and, living the rock star lifestyle. And these stories have grown over time. And, who knows what's true and what's not, but they have for sure taken on a life of their own. And a lot of that is because of the absence of real facts.
Absolutely. I think we should become absent now because, I think we've beaten this law.
Let's get scarce.
All right. Thanks for listening. This is Tom.
This is John.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to A Swift Kick in the Ass podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's content, and we ask you to please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, head over to aswiftkickintheass.com to get a free copy of the Simple Spending Tool.
When was the last time you felt in control of your business finances? Expenses tracked, invoices sent, taxes ready. That's where Found comes in. Found brings your banking, bookkeeping, invoicing, and taxes together in one simple app. Manage expenses, invoice clients, send payments, and prep for tax time right where you bank. Join the hundreds of thousands who have already streamlined their finances with Found. Open a Found account for free at found.com. That's FOUND.com. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services provided by Lead Bank, member FDIC.